Authentic forgiving is a 6-step process. These 6 steps are very important so that you finally get to the point of healing the emotional pain that we have been talking about. The 6 steps are these: awareness, desire, acknowledgement and acceptance, perception, forgiving, and healing. Now you'll notice that forgiving is not until step 5. This is intentional, because throughout my career as a life coach, I have found that many people jump to forgiving too soon, that they haven't done the homework, they haven't done the preparation in order for that forgiving to really relieve them of the emotional pain that they are experiencing. So to get started, I'd like you to think about, how has not forgiving affected your life? What is the impact that not forgiving has had on your life? And this is awareness. I want you to become aware of when you feel the need to get even, when you feel the need to get revenge, or when you are expecting other people to change in order for you to be happy. This happened not that long ago when Carrie came into my office. And as she started to explain her issues and her problems, she said this: 90% of the time that I am hurt, it is because of my husband. He is always hurting my feelings. He is always offending me. He's always doing these things and it just hurts me and it just makes me so mad. I need you to fix my husband so that he doesn't hurt me any longer. Well, it's also important to recognize that we can't change anyone but ourselves. And as much as you would like to fix the other person, this is about fixing yourself. And so becoming aware of those feelings that you have, becoming aware of those emotions that you have, are an important step to forgiving, authentic forgiving. Awareness is also about, what are the barriers to you forgiving? Now, there are many barriers to forgiving. Some of them are outward barriers and some of them are inward barriers. Let me talk about what these barriers are, because if we can identify the barriers, we can actually lower those barriers so that forgiving becomes a little bit easier for us. Because let's face it, forgiving is hard. And because it's hard, we need to look at ways to make it easier. Here's a couple things that I want you to be aware of. Are you feeling the need to get even with someone? Now, you'll notice that I've mentioned this over and over again, and this is a barrier, because as long as you're stuck in this mode of wanting to get even, you're not going to be able to forgive. So it's important to just become aware of that. It's important to recognize that in your own life. Another barrier that we have is when this need to get even comes at us indirectly. Now, we may not be the person that is offended, but if someone close to us is offended, hurt, betrayed, we may want to get even for them. And it creates these negative emotions. So let's say that your sister just found out that her husband was cheating on her, and now you are really angry at your brother-in-law. You may be so angry at him for hurting your sister that you never want to see him again, you never want to talk to him again. As long as you are trying to get even, you are certainly not forgiving, but you're living with negative emotions that's robbing you of happiness. So I want you to become aware of that. How is not forgiving impacting your life? The other barrier that I want to talk about is pride. And I'd like you to consider and have some awareness as to whether or not your own pride, and by pride I mean those feelings that it's very difficult for you to be humble enough to say, I forgive you, to the other person. Pride is a very powerful feeling, and it keeps us from doing a lot of things because of that. But remember, I'm not talking about a face-to-face confrontation where you're going to sit down eye to eye with that person and say, I forgive you, and hope that they have an appropriate response. There's a different way to forgive, and in fact, we're going to get to that in the next few steps. But in this step of awareness, I want you to be aware of your pride. Is that what is keeping you from authentically forgiving another person? Is that what is keeping you from authentically forgiving yourself? Now, there's also some inward barriers that I want to point out to you. And this becomes important because it helps you become just more aware of what some of these barriers are. For example, The inability to forgive yourself and others could be because of what I call displacement. Now, displacement most often shows up in anger. Now, I want you to start to become aware of your level of anger towards other people. Now, this is particularly true with the people that you love and that you want to be closest to, because you may be demonstrating anger towards them because you are unwilling to forgive someone else. And when we are unwilling to forgive, we feel like something's happening to us and we respond with anger. And because we can't be angry at that person directly, we are now angry at the people around us that we love the most. I would bet that if you are experiencing anger and the people around you are saying, "Why are you so angry?" there's a chance that you are withholding forgiveness from someone else. And you're displacing that anger that you don't want to show them for some reason, and you're being angry at other people around you. That anger is no good. That anger is preventing you and others from being happy, and I want you to become aware of that. Another barrier to authentic forgiving is something that can be termed a conflict in loyalty. Now, a conflict in loyalty comes in the same form as the story that I just told you about maybe your sister's husband was caught cheating. You may feel that forgiving your brother-in-law would be a conflict in loyalty to your sister, and that as long as she is mad at her husband, you need to be mad at her husband and not forgive him, because that would mean that you're disloyal to your sister. I want you to pay attention to that. I want you to become aware of that, because you are actually giving up your own happiness for the sake of your sister. Now, maybe you want to do that, but you just need to become aware of that, because this awareness becomes really important. So often we go through life not really aware of why these things are happening to us, but as we start to talk about authentic forgiving, it is really important to have some awareness of the impact that not forgiving is having in your life. Now, in the next video, we'll talk about step number 2. And step number 2 is all about desire. How can you create a desire to authentically forgive the people that have offended you? How do you actually create a desire to forgive yourself of all those dumb things that you have done? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in the next video.